what I'd like to do now is to introduce our fantastic speaker for today. So thank you, Mike, very much for making that time for us and coming to our meeting. And just for those of you, I think Mike really does not need an introduction. However, in case some of you haven't met Mike, he's very, very active on social media. And Mike Orlov is Executive Director and Registrar of the National Register of Public Service Interpreters. Mike also a Fellow of Institute of Leadership and Management. And Mike has got extensive experience in business. He has been a partner in a boutique consulting firm, and he worked, which was based in Bahrain. So Mike also worked, spent 35 years in publishing magazines. So he's working with newspapers and digital channels in the UK and GCC. So as you can see from this very short introduction, Mike has got a very extensive experience in business. And today he would like to share with you some tips and tricks on how to keep your finances intact, and also some other issues. But also after our short briefing today, when we were discussing this this meeting, sorry, I just think I know I'm recording. Mike actually told me that today is going to be a different event. We normally have a little bit of lecture and then a Q&A. So Mike decided that today is going to be a very interactive session, which is why there will be more time for questions and comments. And please, please feel free to put your questions to Mike today. Use your session to your advantage. So on this note, I would like to give the floor to Mike Orlov. Over to you, Mike.
Irina, thank you very much indeed, and welcome everybody. It's lovely to be spending time with you this afternoon. As I'm sure all of you are aware, that the National Register's mandate is to maintain, to protect, and to develop standards in the public service interpreting arena. And it has been for the last 27 years. I mean, this is a role that is rich deep through everything that the National Register is involved in. As part of this, we believe that if we can help registrants and those professional practitioners in the world of public service interpreting, if we can help them improve the way in which they run their own personal business, then that's going to help raise standards within our ecosystem. And that's very much the platform for this afternoon. What I would hope to do is to lay down one or two ideas, some concepts, some thoughts for us to think through about how we manage our finance, either as a sole trader or running a small or medium-sized company. And through that process, for you to think through, what is it that I'm struggling with? What is it that I need some help with as far as the finance side of my business is involved? And for us to share those thoughts and to see whether or not we can uncover ways to improve. And as Irina quite rightly said, I am about 176 years old. So I've been involved in lots of different organizations, both large and small. I've been a sole trader. I've run a small business. I've also been a director of a large multinational. So I fully understand what it's like when you are a sole trader dealing with a larger company and how asymmetrical that relationship can be when chasing money. I also know what it's like to be the large company dealing with smaller companies and indeed sole traders, and what it's like on the other side of the fence. So I would hope to be able to share some ideas with you, some thoughts about how to get the best out of finance, managing finance more effectively, and through that to help raise standards across our ecosystem. truth of the matter is the National Register is not a membership organisation. It is not an association grouping where we're helping each other and working our way forward. We're a regulator. Our job is to regulate. It is to register those who are qualified and experienced and to offer regulation to ensure that professionalism is kept high. However, we are absolutely committed at the National Register to share that which we have with those who wish to see greater professionalism. So I'm delighted to be here today to talk about managing finance, making finance work better. I'll talk for a few minutes, but then we'll open the floor. While I'm talking, while I'm discussing certain concepts, have a think yourselves about that which you are struggling with your finances, in terms of how you are operating and whether or not we can find ways to help you to manage your finances more effectively. First place to start, and this is a little bit counterintuitive because it's not about money. First place to start is your terms and your conditions. Because actually your terms and your conditions lay out the very basis on which you will be dealing with financially other organizations. Think of yourself as setting out your game plan. What is your game plan? Do you want to get paid very quickly so you're prepared to discount the fee? Are you prepared to accept 60-day payment or 90-day payment on the basis that you may be able to get a little bit of extra money? Are you committed that once the work has been done and your invoice is in, that you actually wish to be paid within 2 weeks or a week? Are you so focused on ensuring that you really do get your expenses fully paid and that you agree any travel time that should be paid? Have you got that down in your terms and conditions? Now, truth is, just because you've put it in your terms and conditions doesn't mean to say that you'll get it, but at least it sets out what it is that you're looking for. And packaging that, what I've seen and what I've noticed is if it's a rushed email, you may well miss things. If it's a rushed Word document, you may well miss things. If, however, you take time to develop a PDF that outlines absolutely everything as far as the terms and conditions that you're prepared to accept, chances are you'll get more of them. And I've experienced that. I've seen that. I've seen it within our ecosystem in the world of public service interpreting. I've also seen it in other industries as well. So make sure you've thought through your terms and conditions. Make sure you've covered off all the different elements that you think is important. As part of this, one of the factors within our world that I've been really impressed with is the level of support that we offer each other. I'm thinking particularly of some of the closed groups on platforms such as Facebook, where public service interpreters who are professional practitioners share with each other best practice so that everybody's getting the benefit of other people's learning. And I would absolutely counsel that in those groups, you don't just talk about this agency or that agency, you don't just talk about that problem or this problem, you actually address terms and conditions, how to ensure that you cover off everything that you possibly can. From that platform will come better financial control. Of course, when we move into financial control, cash is king. Cash is king. If you've got cash coming in and you've got less cash going out, it's the definition of a happy individual. If you've got less cash coming in and more cash going out, then we have problems. So how we actually manage and watch over the cash is vitally important. What surprises me most about sole traders is when they've only got the one bank account. The bank account which covers everything from personal finances and the finances of the business. If you do not already have a separate bank account for your business, then let me counsel you to do so. Let that be your bank account for the cash that comes in because of the business, and for any cash that goes out for the business. The surplus from that, it then moves to your personal account. That's almost as if you're paying yourself. So when it comes to the cash, we've decided that yes, we need to have a separate account. Now, as part of that separate account, where does the cash come in from for my business? There's probably 3 different sources of cash. Of course, there's your operating cash, the cash that you receive for the work that you do. So that's operational cash. There'll also be financing cash. Some of you will have loans which have come in, which will need interest to be paid out each month. That's finance cash. Some of you will also have investments. Some of you may well have invested in an acquaintance's business, or you may have bought some shares, and there may be some cash that comes in, and it's cash that has come because of the work that you have done, because you've earned that money. Then that cash flow needs to be marked separately. We need to be aware as to how much of our income has come from operations, the work that we're doing, how much has come in because we have borrowed, and how much has gone out to actually cover that borrowing, and how much has come in from investments. When it comes around to for filling out your tax return, this is hugely important. And if you start managing this in the month, for the month, you'll find that when it comes around to doing your tax return, it's almost done for you. So when thinking about your separate account for your business, thinking about your cash in, make sure that you are separating the cash that comes in from operations, the cash that comes in from any financing, and the cash that might be coming back to you through any investing that you've been doing. Of course, where does the cash come from then? Well, the bulk of that cash is going to come from the work that you do. The work that you have been engaged to do, which you have agreed because of your terms and your conditions. That means an invoice has gone out. That invoice will stimulate the cash back in. Particularly in this last year, but I know it's been endemic through our ecosystem for some time. Getting paid on time by either a privately owned profit-driven agency or direct from a public service organization, getting the cash in can sometimes be very difficult. Not only can it be difficult, sometimes when the cash arrives, it is less than what was invoiced. So logging your invoicing, matching that against cash in, spotting the differences, looking at the time differences from when you sent the invoice to when the cash arrived, all of that's really important to getting a better control of your business. We'll come down to chasing cash a little bit later. Let's just think now about all of this administration work that needs to be done. How can I most effectively use my time to do this, to ensure I'm right on top of my cash out and my cash in my business account? Advice would be once a month in your diary, you block off time, might be 2 hours, maybe a morning. You might get it all done in less than 2 hours. You may get it all done in less than a morning, but block off the time. So that time each month, probably best at the end of the month, where you say, I'm going to look at the cash that's come in. I'm going to look at the cash that's gone out. I'm going to know how much is coming from operations, how much has come in from lending, how much is coming from return on investment, and the same for cash out. I'm going to see what the surplus was. I can then think about how much I'm going to pay myself for that month to go into my personal account because I know what my personal expenses are. And ideally, there's a surplus. Is that going to be a treat? Am I going to buy something nice for myself? Or am I going to put some of it aside for the rainy day that I know will come at some time? Because rainy days always come. So we put some of it aside. The important part of this once a month review is that we'll also get a sense as to what might be coming, what life might be like in the future. And of course, this last year with the coronavirus crisis, it's been very hard on just about everybody in the UK, particularly in certain functions, in certain arenas where cash has been very tight because work's been less. And that can lead to situations where we're very concerned about how much cash we've got given our outgoings. I know this for certain, that when things get tough with finance, when things get tough with cash, one of the temptations is stick your head in the sand, be an ostrich. Just, oh, hopefully it's all going to go away, hopefully the money's going to come. What we need to do is to address it, to face it down. If we can see there's not enough cash coming in for all the outgoings as far as the business is concerned, and then it's really going to get tough on the personal side, I need to do something about it. I'll share a story with you. One of the times I was in the Middle East, I was moving from a very large company to moving to a SME, to a small and medium-sized enterprise. There was going to be a time lag of a few months between earning again and having been earning. And at the time, I was renting an apartment in Bahrain. And I could see that cash was going to be very tight from the point of view of my incoming because there's no cash coming in. And what I really didn't want to do was to have to drag funds from elsewhere, like the UK, over to Bahrain. So I wondered, what can I do about this? I can see, I can plan ahead, I can see I'm going to have some issues with cash in. What can I do about my cash? But only because I spent time to think about it, I could actually try and find some solutions rather than roll into having to live off overdraft, which is expensive, rather than roll into having to work off using credit cards to fund existence, which is exceptionally expensive. If we find ourselves doing that, then we're going to build up interest payments very quickly, and we're soon going to be in big trouble. You could start then to say, well, okay, I need to start to cut my costs. I need to try and find a deferment for some of my expenses. I need to negotiate with my landlord, perhaps just for a 3-month period, to lower my costs. I might even decide to sell an asset. Where I was in Bahrain, and that's exactly what I did. I had a watch, which is a very expensive watch, which I didn't need. What I needed was cash to see me through for the next month, rather than have to dip into reserves. Sold the watch, negotiated with the landlord, dropped the amount of outgoing that was needed for the rental. For that 3-month period, I managed to create a situation where I absolutely did not have to dip into savings. I controlled my cash outflowing, and I made sure that when I started earning again, I'd not had to create problems for myself. Now, only because you take time to sit, to think, and to look at it. If you are not having a monthly meeting with yourself, then let me heartily recommend do it. Put it in your diary. Make it the last Thursday or the last Friday of the month. You review your cash in, you review your cash out with your business account, how much has been put across that you need for your personal account, whether you can put some aside for the rainy day fund, and also the treats. Massively important. Now, my invoice has gone out. Our invoices have been sent. My invoice is not being paid. What do I do? How can I improve my financial world and get better at chasing my funds? Irina and I were discussing this only earlier today, And one of the big issues is that every organization that you will deal with has a set pattern, a rote, a way in which it handles cash out. I'll give you an example. An organization like the National Register, we're a relatively small operation, and yet we have bills that need to be paid. And they need to be paid out. So the invoices come in, we have to sort it out, we have to process it, raise the money, and then make sure the cash goes out. Now, we do that once a month on a certain day. If somebody's invoice comes to us the day after that process, it'll be a whole month before it gets looked at. If somebody's invoice arrives to us the day before we do the processing, it will be done on the day of that processing. So somebody could get a bill to us and they could actually be getting their money within 3 days. Or somebody could get a bill to us and it will be maybe 5 weeks before they get the money. So knowing what the patterns are of those organizations that owe you money because you've invoiced them, recognizing those patterns and then making sure that we take note of them when we send our invoices at the right time, in the right way. Perhaps it's online and there are certain buttons that need to be clicked, certain boxes that need to be filled in. If we understand those patterns, chances are we'll be paid more quickly. Some of us will know that there are certain organizations that no matter which buttons you press, no matter how much you get it right, there's still going to be a delay. My advice in situations like that is find out who it is that is in charge of accounts payable. Who is the individual within that organization who's in charge of accounts payable? Because that's the individual you need to email and you need to bug with telephone calls. By bugging that individual, you've got a right to do that. Absolute right. They owe you money, they're late, therefore you're chasing that money. If the person in charge of accounts payable knows that you're going to chase them, is aware that if they don't pay you on time, then you push yourself up the list to make sure that you do get paid. So whichever organization it is that owes you money, whichever organization where you've done the right things, you've pressed the right buttons, you've got your invoice to them, you've done everything that's been asked of you, you make sure you find out who the accounts payable person is and you make sure that you chase them. If that doesn't work and you are still owed money, then you get in touch with the boss. You get in touch with either the chief executive officer, the chief operating officer, the managing director, and you bug them. You say, look, I've done everything right. I did some work for you 3 months ago. I've been working with your accounts payable people and they're still not paying me. And then you bug them until they say to accounts payable, sort it out. You owe this to yourself. That if somebody owes you money, you chase them to make sure that you get it. We are polite, we are always polite, but if they owe you money, you are well within your rights. Chase accounts payable and chase the most senior management within that organization. So what happens if you get shortchanged? What happens if the money that arrives doesn't match the invoice? And the difference may not be very great. You walk away, you think, I can't be bothered. It's £20 or it's £15. Oh, I've got the bulk of it, I just write it off. Is that what you do? If we do that, what we're doing is we are endorsing that activity. We're endorsing that type of approach. And we as professional practitioners should not be. That which was agreed to come to your pocket for the work that you delivered, there was no complaints about the work that you delivered, therefore that is what you should be paid. If you are shortchanged, you should not walk away from it. Let me advise you, because if you walk away from that, that will then continue, not just for you, but for many, many other people. So make sure that you chase effectively when you are owed money and make sure you get the amount that's owed and due to you. So we've organised ourselves on a monthly basis. We're managing our business on cash in and on cash out. We also know what invoices we've sent so we can see what the differences are. We're taking note of this. We have it written down each month, which means when it comes round to doing your tax return, you'll be in a much better position because everything has been captured. Your expenses have been captured, your income has been captured, your invoicing out has been captured, that which is owed to you has been captured, and you've got a clear picture as to which organizations you're dealing with are good payers, which organizations are bad payers. You've also got a very clear view as to which organizations are good to deal with in terms of terms and conditions and who gives you a hard time. Perhaps the best advice I can give when it comes to managing your own finances is to have a very positive view of yourself and of the business that you run, be it an incorporated small business or be you a sole trader. You are valuable. The service that you offer is valuable. Therefore, if anybody is mistreating their relationship with you, and it is asymmetrical, you're little, they're big, it's asymmetrical. Anybody's mistreating you, then you should make sure that you stand up for yourself. Make sure accounts payable know to pay you. Make sure the most senior management of the companies pay you. Make sure you are right on top of each month where your situation is. When times are tough, when cash looks thin for the future, think through what's the best way forward to get me through this tough time, through the lean times. Avoid credit card debt and managing your business off credit card. You will be living with very big bills of interest for too long. If you can, avoid overdraft unless it's for very short periods of time. To understand your ability to borrow loans, it's well worth having a look through an organization like Experian to see what your credit rating actually is, because that will influence the interest rate that you will get on loans. So do have a look at your own credit rating. And if you are going to need some cash, then loan rather than overdraft or credit card. If you can avoid loan, try to do that. And that's about managing your cost base. Can I negotiate lower prices? Can I negotiate delayed payments out? So therefore I'm not paying out quite so much over the next month or the next 2 months. Will that help me? Something else to consider. And this is this concept of setting up an incorporated business. If you're currently a sole trader, you can set up as a business. And then as that incorporated business, you pay yourself a sum of money from there. If you're tight for cash, you could always have an equity partner. So this is somebody who believes in you. This is somebody who thinks that you are worthy, that you really do have value. And if I put some equity into your business, if I own 20% of your business, then further down the line, I'll get some form of dividend off your income. Now, the joy of that, when compared to loan, is that you're only paying out against the income that comes in. You're not having to scrabble around to find interest payments. I know of some people who've done that actually this year, where they've set up an incorporated business. They pay themselves from that incorporated business. The business needs money. They have an equity partner comes in who takes a percentage share of the business. That's a lump of cash that comes in to help you. And as part of the arrangement, that person will get a dividend off your income. And it's actually not a bad way forward, because at some stage you could also agree that you have the right to buy back the equity that the person took from you. So that's another way of trying to find cash in tough times. Of course, the cheapest money, but it's something that I personally never advise, is family and friends. Borrowing money from friends can break friendships. Borrowing money from family can cause all sorts of ruckus. But invariably it's cheap. If it's for a relatively short period of time, if you can pay back quickly, then understandable. But if you do need, if you cast forward on your monthly meetings, you can see that there's going to be a gap. Don't just roll into it and start to live off credit card and overdraft. Manage it more effectively. It'll be cheaper for you in the long run. So, terms and conditions, get them right. Separate business account, cash in and cash out for the business. Remember to log your cash in the 3 different ways it arrives: from the work that you do, operations, from any borrowing or financing that you do, the cash in and the cash out to fund that, and if you do have any investments, the cash that comes in from that. Make sure you've got a very clear vision of that. The surplus from your business account is then for you to decide as to what goes into your personal account and what goes into your rainy day savings. Do it once a month. Don't walk away from it. Do it once a month so you get a sense as to a really good sense as to what's going on. Make sure your invoicing is spot on. Find out when the organizations that you're dealing with are running their payment schedules. Get your invoicing in before that, because otherwise you'll end up being a month late. Know who the accounts payable boss is in the company that you're dealing with. So if you have to get in touch with somebody, it's them. And you're going to hold them responsible. If that doesn't work, then make sure that you're speaking to the senior management. Something that we didn't touch on then, if this invoicing is via an agency working on behalf of a public sector organisation, don't forget you can always go to the public sector organisation as well. One of the things that the National Register has been working on with a number of different public bodies is to say, for those professionals who are not being paid and the terms and conditions are not working with the agencies, can we have a direct line for them to come to you so that you can pick this up, because it is bad for you, for your reputation as a public sector operation. Perhaps the worst example of that in the last few years was the Debonair debacle from 2019, which the National Register is still chasing the Ministry of Justice about. But remember that you can always go to the public sector organisation. You just have to make sure that you find the right name, the right person, where they will potentially take action on your behalf. So that's something else to think about as well. And if you do need to borrow to see yourself through for cash in, make sure it's the cheapest possible way for you to do that, and don't build up debt, which is then going to have to be paid at high interest rates like credit cards. I'm about coming to a close on this. We're running now at about 22, yes, 20 to 3. So I've talked through lessons I've learned about running finance for a sole trader, running finance for a small business, and also lessons I've learned from when I've been in large companies about what triggers me in that role to make sure that our cash out is right, that we're actually paying the people who we need to pay. I hope that through this you've picked up perhaps 1 or 2 tips that may be helpful for yourself, but I would suggest that in our time that's left, we ask questions, we explore problems, we think through issues, and we'll see if we can help each other to manage our finances more effectively as sole traders and as small businesses in this ecosystem of public service interpreting. So I'm going to shut up now until the questions start to come. Then as the questions come, we can explore together and see whether or not we can find solutions to problems. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to taking questions.